Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our CIS Hardened Images webinar. My name is Ronan Tew. I am with the member success team. I also give technical demos. On with me is Kelly Morris to answer any questions. I do have Greg Carpenter and Jordan Rakoske on with us. Greg Carpenter is the product owner for Hardened Images and for the cloud here at CIS. And Jordan is the senior technical product expert as well. They will be giving the bulk of the demo. We do note that all lines are on mute. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A section. And also, there is an alternate phone number to call into if you're having issues with your line. So from here, I want to say welcome, and hopefully we can learn a lot from Greg and Jordan. And I'm going to pass it over to them now so that they can go ahead and give us their webinar. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Roden. This is Greg Carpenter. As Ronan said, I'm the product owner for cloud services and products that CIS offers. At any point in time, please feel to reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation about what you're utilizing in the cloud and how we might be able to help with our current products or new products or services. So with that, we're going to be going over CIS Hardened Images today, securely configured OS in the cloud. Here's a few things that you'll learn today. You're going to learn who is CIS, our approach to security, and how that all ties into CIS Hardened Images, and then we'll share some resources, hopefully, that you will find beneficial at the end. So a little bit about CIS. CIS is a nonprofit based in East Greenwich, New York. We utilize the community consensus-based approach to develop best practices for securing IT systems and data. The CIS vision is to lead the global community to secure our connected world. We follow through with that vision through our mission, which is to identify, develop, and maintain best practice solutions for cyber defense. With this in mind, we build and lead communities to enable an environment of trust in cyberspace. One of my favorite slogans that we have is confidence in a connected world. Whenever you think of CIS, think about that. So then in talking about the CIS mission, we're going to go over the CIS Controls and the CIS Benchmarks, and how they are the security guides that can help protect an organization and data from known cyber attack vectors. So in discussing our vision and mission, CIS's approach to security best practices can be expressed as the ability to enable frictionless security. So what does that mean to you? It means that CIS wants enterprises to be able to implement their security program as quickly and efficiently as possible. We want this to happen within an enterprise across all organizations. For CIS, this efficient, frictionless security is implied. And what companies need to look at is automation from the outset. Without automation and restructuring security to happen in the beginning across all sections of the enterprise, frictionless security is difficult to achieve. Essentially, you want to start secure to stay secure. That's something that I'll allude to throughout the presentation today, is starting secure and staying secure. I'm going to turn it over to Jordan. He's going to go through our benchmarks and share what those guides can do for you from a security standpoint.
Thank you, Greg. Like Greg said, my name is Jordan Rakoske. I'm a senior technical product manager here at CIS. What that means is I lead a bunch of the communities here that develop content for different types of technologies. So first, we're kind of going to discuss what our benchmarks are and how they're created, and then Greg will kind of go over how they're used in the cloud. So first thing you see here is a picture of one of our cover pages for our Windows benchmark. Basically, our benchmarks are consensus-based best practices. What that means is that they're developed by a volunteer community of experts that come together to decide on the recommendations that go within each guide. Right now, we have over 150 benchmarks covering 14 different technology groups. And all of our PDFs that we create through this consensus process are available free to everyone in the world. You can download them right from our public website there. So if we look at one of the recommendations in the actual benchmark, I'll kind of go over what each field means here. The first thing you'll see is the profile applicability, which is going to kind of tell you is a recommendation level 1 or level 2. Why that's important is because in any environment, you get to decide, where to start and which, which type of profile you want to apply in your organization. Most folks like to start with level 1 because they're baseline recommendations, but really depending on the type of work you do or the type of environment you have will really dictate what level you're going to be choosing. So level 2 is more like defense in depth. So if you require stronger security requirements, that's kind of going to be the level you want to start with. I will say this: anytime you are going through and providing any type of remediation or hardening to a system, you do want to make sure you're properly testing, right? Obviously, hardening is locking down settings, so you want to make sure that you're at least in a test environment and non-production environment when you are rolling these out. The next thing you'll see here is a description section, which is going to be a high-level overview of the actual setting itself. The rationale is really the important part. It's going to tell you the why. Why is it important? What are the benefits? What is the risk? Right. So when you're going through these recommendations and you're deciding as an organization, do we want to accept this or do we want to make an exemption and say, hey, we're not going to apply this? You'll understand the risk involved with not doing that. We include 2 steps, one being the audit and one being the remediation. The audit steps are going to be the set of steps to manually check or to validate that you're in compliance, right? So, hey, do I have my password set to 14 characters? Here's the set of steps to validate that you have that. And then the remediation step is going to be, okay, well, how do I actually set that if I don't, right? Here's how to set your password to 14 characters. Also, in the Windows side, we have some impact statements, which are really important based on the feedback, because these are consensus-based best practices, and we get a ton of feedback, especially in Windows and Linux on the operating system side. We'd like to put impact statements in, and really this is going to help you make your decision as to if you're going to be applying this in your environment, because you'll understand that, hey, in an Exchange environment, this setting could cause conflict. So you'll know ahead of time, hey, maybe we should omit this setting or test it before rolling it out. So how are benchmarks created? I kind of mentioned it. I said they're consensus-based best practices, but really how we kind of start the whole process is internally, we send out a survey once a year, and we get a lot of feedback from folks that tell us what kind of content they want to see us create. And basically, we also get emails throughout the year, too, with folks asking, hey, do you have coverage for this or that? And we track all that. And then at the end of the year, we kind of correlate it and say, okay, well, what technologies do we want to branch out into? What are some strengths that we can have where we can align people to help out on those given projects? And once we determine, which benchmarks or technologies that we want to work on, it goes to a benchmark developer like myself or one of my other team members, and we build a community around that. We start first finding an editor and some contributors to help create the content. So we reach out to those people that had interest originally in saying, hey, I'd love to see content for this. And we say, hey, would you like to help out in this content, help develop this content further or be a part of the process? We reach out to technology vendors to see if they want to help out. And we reach out to our community of people. And each one of us kind of does some external outreach to find folks to help out in the development of these benchmarks. And then once we have our kind of core community or core group built, we start adding in recommendations and having discussions around that and throwing in tickets, and we start creating the content that way. It allows everyone to kind of see what's going on and get a live view of the recommendations going in, and it allows anybody to kind of comment and provide feedback on that. So if someone makes a ticket to add a setting in, anybody can kind of add feedback and say, hey, yeah, we agree, let's add this in, or hey, no, we need to make sure that if we're going to do that, it's in this specific environment. So here's a little bit of how the consensus process works. I really like this image. I think it's a good representation about kind of the workflow that we follow as benchmark developers. So the first thing we do whenever we start from scratch from a new benchmark is we get recommendations added in, and at that point we have the community as a whole or anybody join to our Workbench site, which I'll show you a link for in a moment, has the ability to view all the settings that go into a benchmark. So once we're ready to publish, we kind of put a draft out there and say, hey guys, go review this benchmark and let us know any feedback that you may have. And at that time, we take that feedback, make our updates, and then we put out a published document. We also make sure that all of our tickets are addressed. So if there's any issues with a benchmark, we review all the tickets that have come in for that period of time. Like I said, it goes out for that final review. Everybody gets the opportunity to voice their opinion or you know, make additional recommendations, and then we publish a benchmark. Now, what we also have is after we publish a benchmark, we have milestones set and say, hey, you know, at this given time, we're going to take a look at this benchmark again. You know, that's really more for application-based benchmarks, but for OS-based benchmarks, they're kind of always, you know, like on an endless cycle. We're always working on them. So as tickets come in, we're always looking at them and always updating the benchmarks. But what we do is once we do a publish, we immediately start working on the next benchmark and tracking what new tickets have come in, you know, for that new technology for the next version, and we start working with the team members to get those items addressed. And then we just keep getting the feedback. So all the feedback that we get back from our member support folks, and the content that comes into the community or just emails directly, we take that and we make sure we create tickets for it so we can get those items addressed and put into the next releases. So who contributes and why do they? Actually, a lot of people ask this question. It's a kind of a wide range of folks that do. Like I said, the technology vendors do. Some don't have their own hardening content, and you know they want to work with CIS because they know that it's a respected company, and folks use CIS, and they like that it's an open platform where folks can come in and really, you know, provide content and provide ideas as a whole. You know, through the consensus process, and really kind of get their content vetted out. And others do have hardening content, but they also want to make sure that you know, the content that we're putting out is also correct because they understand that people are going to be using it. We have individuals, regular individuals that aren't part of any company or any vendor that just want to help out because, you know, they want the attribution or they want to earn credits towards a certification so we can submit for credits for them. Our members join, so we have Secure Suite members who are paid membership that you know, they get all the emails that go out, and they're applying these benchmarks in their environment, right? So they're doing the SysCat scans, and they're you know, they're applying the remediation kits, and you know, you may have set team members that want to be involved in a given project, so they may have their Windows administrators and their Linux administrators be in those given communities to, you know, stay up to date with what changes are coming down the pipe. So they know, hey, you know, CIS is going to be implementing the setting in the next couple weeks or next couple months. We need to prepare for it, right? So we're ready for that. So like I said, everything we do here at CIS for the benchmark side, everything's consensus-based. So it's all built by a volunteer community, and we wouldn't be able to create the content without everybody. So we're always looking for folks to, you know, join up and help out. Even if you want to join up and just kind of lurk around, that's great. You know, you can kind of see how our processes work. This is a link to our Workbench site. It's free to sign up. Once you sign up, you have the ability to log in. One, you have access to all the free PDF resources that we have. They're also available on our public site as well. But on the Workbench side, you have availability for all the PDFs, plus you have the ability to join any technical community and kind of see, you know, what's going on. You have the ability to comment, ask questions. So if you're an Exchange administrator, feel free to throw a comment in there or ask a question. There's tons of, you know, there's tons of experts out there that are joining these communities that can help you and provide you feedback. I think the last slide I have here is basically who's using the benchmarks, and really everyone is using them, right? And it ranges from your IT staff is going to be using them, your auditors, right? So if you're going to be audited, they're using the benchmarks. Your cloud engineers, your cloud architects, they're all using the benchmarks that CIS provides, especially now that we're really heavy into the cloud market and covering a lot of areas. You know, the list is very long on the users using these benchmarks. And at this point, I'm going to pass it back to Greg to pick up the control side and go over the hardened images.
Hey, thanks, Jordan. So today I'm going to answer these questions when it comes to the CIS controls. What are the controls? Why did we annotate benchmarks with the controls information? And why this may matter to you, how it may benefit you. So the CIS controls since the inception are a prioritized set of IT and business practices created to stop today's most pervasive and dangerous cyber attacks. The CIS controls are developed, redefined, and validated by a community of leading experts from around the world, just like our benchmarks are. And by the design, the CIS controls, while prioritized, are really a set of guiding principles you can use in a way that makes sense within your organization. CIS and the community have reworked version 7 into different priority levels based on specific feedback provided by the community. Whereas before the controls were all brought together and we highlighted the most important, they have recategorized them, as you see here on this slide, into 3 different categories. The basic, or the first 6 set of controls, can serve as the first steps an organization can take as part of their cybersecurity efforts, following with the foundational and organizational as the security strategy is implemented and grows. So that's a little bit about the controls. So why did we annotate our benchmarks with the controls? Well, CIS went through the process of mapping our recommendations on our benchmarks to all the controls where it is applicable. Why is best answered by reviewing this example on this slide. Let's take a look at CIS Control 5.1. This control reads as follows: minimize administrative privileges and only use administrative accounts when they are required. Implement focused auditing on the use of administrative privilege functions and monitor for anomalous behavior. So what might you use to measure this control to ensure you're doing it well? You can look to our benchmarks, as they recommend these very things that this control talks about and can therefore be mapped to the control as they are. This mapping will provide solid proof that you are acting in accordance with that control as shown here. CI offers the CIS controls and CIS benchmarks to everyone for free. So used together, they will help you comply with various security requirements, which can help you achieve a specific level of compliance as listed here. CIS benchmarks are recognized by FISMA, FedRAMP, and PCI as industry-accepted hardening standards. So applying benchmarks, along with the controls, can help you meet the requirements of the different frameworks. Does it mean that you are 100% compliant with regard to any of the standards? No, but it does mean that you are well on your way. So let's use this benchmark for an example. If you harden your systems with Windows Server 2012 R2 benchmarks, and those same systems are being utilized for your PCI compliant servers, then you have already met part of the security requirements as outlined in PCI. So how do the controls and the benchmarks tie into our hardened images? Well, let's first start by defining what is hardening. So for CIS, it is the process of applying the CIS benchmark recommendations to a base image provided by the cloud service provider. We build on the base image provided by the CSP so that there is no question on its origin and its stable, consistent state. In practice, we build new versions of the CIS hardened images on a specific cadence depending on the flavor of the operating system. For example, our Windows varieties fall in the week of Patch Tuesday every month, and for our Linux varieties, we currently rebuild every quarter. As part of the hardening process, we apply over 270 plus recommendations for the systems that we harden. This slide provides an example of just a few of the recommendations that we apply for the CIS Microsoft Windows Server 2016 hardened system. As you can imagine, the hardening of a system will reduce the amount of system vulnerabilities for hundreds of configuration settings. As we continue to update every month, we include any of the benchmark changes indicated in the recommendations over time, along with any of the operating system and application updates applied to those systems. Here are some additional benefits of CIS hardened images. You can stay secure while saving time and money by not having to harden yourself. The monthly builds, as I included before, will have all the updated patches. Scaling of resources on the fly using our images, including the updated images, and they're ready to deploy in minutes. As I spoke to before, you often want to start secure and stay secure. So how do you do that? Well, with the CI/CD, continuous improvement, continuous deployment workflow, you can build into that automation, our CIS Hardened Images. And in a more traditional environment, you could have any rebuild or migration happen on the latest CIS Hardened Image provided. This slide shares some additional compliance that our benchmarks/hardened images can provide. As it states here, cloud security information impact levels are defined by the combination of the level of information to be stored and processed in the CSP, the cloud service provider environment, and the potential impact of an event that results in the loss of confidentiality, integrity, or availability of the data systems or networks. So the use of our benchmarks, which correlates directly into the CIS Hardened Images we offer in the cloud, now meets IL2 standards and have been recognized as suitable baselines in lieu of STIGs and SRGs. If you want to reference this guide, it's referenced on here, the DoD Cloud Computing Security Requirements Guide, version 1, release 3. This is an example of all the images we currently offer. These are not exclusive to all CSPs, cloud service providers. A prime example of that is Amazon Linux. It's obviously only offered in AWS. Quick plug here, we're always looking to expand, so please share your needs and requirements with CIS at any time. Please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to support, Jordan, or Ronan with any information on anything that you're looking for in relation to the cloud. So where can you find them? Currently, we're on the 3 top tier 1 cloud providers. We're in AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. Some key takeaways I hope you took away from this webinar today. CIS Hardened Images are pre-configured to meet the recommendations of the benchmarks. The controls are mapped to the benchmarks. So therefore, you have the security guidelines in the hardened images. You can save time and money by spinning up a securely configured CIS hardened image, and there's a secure option for flexible scalability while working in the cloud. This last slide includes some resources that might be helpful for you. You can go over our hardened images. So it'll talk about the controls, some different government agencies, and then some case study at the bottom.
So Greg, I think we got through most of the questions up until, Kason Ramos asked, will level 2 images be available in Red Hat Linux 7? If you could start from there, then you can, we've answered most of the questions in the Q&A section, via the Q&A section. If you want to go verbally and read the question and then answer it, that'd be great.
Hold on one second. Can you read the question? I don't have my Q&A open right now. I just can't find it. Sorry.
Yep, sure. So John asks, we limit the use of AMIs by provider in AWS. Can you provide the CIS owner ID for the images?
That's a great question. We offer them through Marketplace. So can you jot that one down? I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. I don't know. Through the development and deployment process, they're tagged with a Marketplace ID.
Gotcha. All right. So John, I've taken down your name, and we'll cross-reference it with our registrants, and we'll get back to you with that one. If you already are a member of CI Secure Suite, you can also send that question to membersuccess@cisecurity.org or support@cisecurity.org. Andrea asks, are there any CIS, I'm assuming benchmarks for container-based images?
So we do have Docker benchmark. Jordan, can you talk to any other container benchmarks that we might have? Actually, let me look it up.
Oops, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, we have Docker and Kubernetes, as our current coverage, but we don't have any offered yet in the cloud at the moment.
No, but we are looking at that now.
Yeah, yep, it's on the board.
Great. Tommaso asks, how does CIS compare to other types of configuration guidance, such as NIST 800, SK 800, and some of the other more stringent frameworks that are out there?
Sure, I kind of take that one. So we actually do, since you offered Microsoft Security Compliance Manager, we actually review and we do work with Microsoft, like I said, when we're developing our baseline. So we actually do a compare. So a lot of the stuff in our level 1 recommendations, we'll make sure that we're not in disagreement with Microsoft unless we actually disagree and there's a setting we don't agree upon, which is like 2 settings. Otherwise, we have the same, all the Microsoft content is pretty much the same as most of the stuff in our level 1. Then we go a little bit beyond that and NIST. I think we just recently did a comparison document of ours and Stig's and Microsoft, and there's a good chunk of it that's the same, and then there's a lot that goes outside of it. You know, we also offer level 2, which is not a Microsoft thing, to really lock down the system. So there's a lot of similarities, I think, in any of the standards, you know, because they're locking down core system weaknesses. So you're going to see, and then you're going to see a variation between the two of certain settings here, certain settings there. But we do, when we're creating a benchmark, we also look at, okay, what are the others doing, right? Because these are built by community of experts around the world. So yes, some of them are using NIST, and yes, some of them are using Microsoft. So they're providing that feedback, which is why you see the overlap.
Okay. And I'm looking for a question from George. George, do we have to redeploy our images and rebuild our applications when the CIS baseline templates are updated, or is this done in the background automatically?
Well, they are images, so when they are updated, you would have to redeploy your applications to a new instance built off of that image. Unless you're using an automated process that could pull the latest AMI ID, build off of that, and deploy your application through code to that image, which is what to that instance built off the image, which is what I reference. Some companies that utilize our hardened images do that type of workflow.
Right, and I'll piggyback on that, Greg. It's very similar to a regular environment too, where we have a given benchmark out for Windows, right, and then we release a new one. You would still review the new settings and then apply them in your environment before you wouldn't just take the new remediation kit and apply it over the top of the old one. You would compare it, see what's new, and then validate what settings you're going to be adding. The initial content you have is your base, right? And so then you're going to look at, okay, well, what was added? You could look at a benchmarks change log and get an idea of, okay, what are the new settings? I only have to add these, 25 settings in, or we can evaluate them to see if we need to do them. It really doesn't necessarily need a full-blown image once you already have one. So I hope that helps too.
Thank you, Jordan and Greg. So for Shrikant or anyone else that is a member of CIS Secure Suite, CIS Secure Suite, you can reach technical support at support@cisecurity.org, support@cisecurity.org. Hopefully we can have that at the end of this call, and we'll leave it on the screen. Jeremy asks for the slides. We're going to send that over. Ismail is asking or stating CIS Secure Suite only scans the OS and tells you what's missing, but it doesn't fix the issue or apply the changes. That is correct for Syscat Pro Assessor, but Ismail, we do have remediation kits available for specific operating systems that you can download from the CIS Workbench site. Again, if you are a Secure Suite member, and you can you can apply remediation there. You have to tailor that remediation as well, according to your custom configuration standard. Amazon Linux, Kelly answered the Amazon Linux question. So give me one more second here, sorry.
I'm going to follow up on that one. Ronan, I want to follow up on that one on Kelly. So Amazon Linux, level 2. So there's two things we can do there, right? We don't have a level 2 for Linux in any of the environments yet. It's something that we're exploring. There's some requirements in a level 2 image that are difficult to deploy in a cloud environment through automation. So we're working through that now. That is a great link, Kelly, though. Please look there for what we do offer. But if you're referencing Amazon Linux 2, that is on our roadmap because there's Amazon Linux and Amazon Linux 2. That is on our roadmap. Currently, we only build our hardened images based off of a benchmark that is available. So if we don't have the benchmark yet, we wait to build the hardened image until the benchmark is completed. Sorry, go ahead, Rod.
No, thank you, Greg. Michael asks, will there be anything on checkpoint firewalls?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Right now we're reviewing, we have it on our roadmap to look at network devices specifically in the cloud and how we might, one, go about hardening those while they're in the cloud, and then two, how we might be able to deploy that as an image. From a benchmarks perspective, I'd have to defer to Jordan with specific on checkpoint firewalls.
Yeah, Mike leads that effort, and it's currently in draft for the 1.1.0 version.
Okay.
So I think they're really close on getting something out on that. I believe I saw it on his board. So keep a lookout for that, not in the cloud, but specifically the actual benchmark. I did see under that someone asked about Windows 10 workstations. And we have remediation kits for Windows 10 workstations. We have benchmarks for Windows 10 workstations. We just don't have cloud images for Windows 10 workstation at the moment. So again, if you're a Secure Suite member and you have cloud images for workstation, you could just take the remediation kit and tailor it as needed. And support could also help you with that. If you have any questions about what settings you need to apply, and if you're having any issues, just reach out to us.
Thank you, guys. Pierre asks, aside from using hardened images, what other tools, techniques does CIS offer to apply benchmarks, if any? So, Pierre, keep in mind that this webinar is directed around specifically hardened images. CIS does offer a product called Secure Suite. You've heard us mention that a few times on this call already. So Secure Suite will give you access to some of the automated tools that you can run scans for the endpoint configuration settings that are recommended in the CIS benchmarks, where you can have a dashboard for visualization, aggregation, reporting from those scans, as well as alerting from those scans. And then we also offer remediation kits with that membership. As CIS is a nonprofit organization, we do offer memberships to this Secure Suite. It's not a license. It's not a license fee. So there is a difference there, but we do offer that. And Pierre, we do have webinars monthly on the Secure Suite set of products. Now let me get to the next question. What mechanisms do you recommend for maintaining these benchmarks, and how does it differ between Windows and Linux? For example, GPO for Windows and what for Linux? So I can take part of that, Scott. It looks like it is GPO for Windows for remediation. For Linux, we offer shell scripts, and obviously for the GPOs, you're going to use your group policy manager to go ahead and edit those and refine them again, customize them according to your organizational needs. You can do the same thing with the shell scripts for Linux. With regards to mechanisms for maintaining the benchmarks, the Syscat Pro dashboard, which is again a part of the CIS Secure Suite suite of products, does allow for measurement of configuration drift. So once you get to that baseline hardened image, that golden copy within your environment, you expect to get a certain score against the CIS benchmarks. The dashboard will alert you once you set up scheduled scans through the dashboard. The dashboard will alert you and let you know when a scan comes back with a lower score than that baseline image. Then you can go ahead and run a diff report and see changes in there. So there is an alerting process that CIS offers. But we will get back to you, Scott, with more information. It sounds like you might need some more from us. Marcus asks, for the level 1 server 2016 images for Azure Marketplace, can you confirm that there is a U.S. charge for the vanilla image?
Yes, I can answer that. So yes, we charge 2 cents per hour for our hardened images. So if you run the server 2016 image for 24 hours a day for 30 days a month, roughly it's $14.40. So 15 months to round up is a correct surcharge for running a CIS Hardened Image.
Thank you, Greg. Ernie asks, are there details for exactly what has changed from the base image to get to the CIS hardened state? I'll take that for a second because to me that pertains more to Secure Suite. But once you start running scans within your environment, you're going to get an exact report that tells you your failures versus the CIS benchmark. So if you're talking about on-prem solutions, not the hardened images themselves that you use in the commercial clouds that are available that we're talking about here, then by running those assessment reports through Syscat Processor, you'll actually get a report telling you your failures and how you differ from the actual CIS baseline endpoint configuration recommendation settings. But Ernie, we'll get back to you on that as well. There's more behind that answer as well.
Right, and
Ashwin said, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to add, on the images themselves, we actually put a report. So when we applied the hardening to the actual image, we provide a Syscat report that'll be on for Windows. It's on the local SC under I think hardened reports. So you can actually see what settings were checked. So and then we also have an exception list in there for the items that we did not apply. For the specific cloud environments, they kind of range where there's certain settings we can't apply for RDP purposes and things like that. But yeah, definitely take a look at that. That'll show you what changed. And then just generically, if you wanted to know what changed between versions of the benchmarks, the change log at the end of the benchmarks will be your best bet.
Okay, so let's just keep on scrolling down. I'm going to get to the chat questions after I get to Q&A. Okay, so are there any plans for releasing a tool for scanning cloud environments against established CIS benchmarks for CSPs?
I can take that one, and Jordan, you can then jump on if you want. So our tool that we offer is host-based, so it can be utilized in the cloud. If you're talking about the CSPs being able to scan against our benchmarks, we do have a certification member process where members can certify their tool against our benchmarks. It is up to them to join and come to CIS and then ask for that certification. So if you're looking for a specific CSP and you would like one of their tools, I would recommend you reach out to them and ask them. If you just want to utilize our Secure Suite tool, by all means, our support can definitely help you deploying and getting that running in your cloud environments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks,
we're also looking to expand, coverages down the road. We're bringing on new folks too to help with that. So in the future, we may actually have coverage for those different environments for scanning purposes. But we're also partnering with vendors too. So I think there's a question right under this, and Ronan, I don't mean to steal it from you, but someone asked, will these images pass Microsoft Baseline Configuration Scanner in Azure? We actually worked with Microsoft. They were on the Azure benchmark team. So I believe they're actually creating, and I don't know if it's released yet, so don't quote me on this, but they're going to be releasing something that scans, to make sure that it's hardened according to the Foundation's benchmark that we created. I don't know if that answers your actual question for that, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Jordan. Do you want to take the next question as well with regard to Azure from Scott Doyle at 131?
Sure. Let me see. Are there benchmarks for Intune? Yeah, this gets asked a lot. We're in the process right now of looking at what types of remediation and assessment we can do. Because right now there's so many different Microsoft products out there, right? So GPOs are kind of the old school way of locking down the system, and then you have Intune, you have MDM, you have all these new solutions that Microsoft are offering, which are great, but they all kind of vary on how to lock them down, and they don't really support the old GPO way. So we're working on that now. We've had talks with Microsoft about like a tool to use. They used to have SCCM, which was nice, where you could convert the GPOs into a policy. They mentioned that they're working on something because when they retired that, there wasn't a product to necessarily replace it. So we are looking at opportunities to, come up with new remediation for those local systems. But the GPOs we do apply, or that we do have now, you can apply on local systems using LGPO. We provide some steps to do that. Yes, it's not Intune or MDM files, and it probably isn't compatible, but that's what we do have for now for local systems.
Okay, perfect. So thanks, Jordan. The next question is, using AWS CloudFormation, we often alter the image as we enter it into the stack to allow our service to run properly. Ernie, I'm assuming there's a question behind that, so I was just reading that. Ashwin, upon scanning Microsoft Azure pre-hardened Windows Linux VM against the CIS Benchmark audit file, we only receive 80% compliance. Is there a gap in the cadence for updating the images audit files?
So that's most likely, there should be an exception report in any of the CIS pre-hardened images. So in some cases, we can't be 100% in the cloud environments to the benchmark. There are exceptions, and we do list those within the benchmarks. Or in the cloud images, we do post. Just because if we did lock it down, you wouldn't be able to access the system. So each system, I think it's, Greg, you might know, in the Windows side, it's like 97% we're at, or 94%, I can't remember. And then it's different in Linux too for the percent of compliance.
Yeah, we're always over 92%. Typically, you'll see us up at closer to 95, 96, depending on the flavor. My question for Ashwin is, what tool were you scanning it with? If you're using Azure's tool against the benchmark audit file, I'd have to see their report to actually confirm or deny what they're testing on, because some tools, even though they'll scan against our audit file, will include additional checks that aren't part of our recommendations.
Yeah, and for follow-up questions.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Greg.
No, I'm good.
For follow-up questions within the Q&A, we'll go back through who asked questions, cross-reference your email address, and then we'll reach out to you with an answer. Or again, if you are members of CI Secure Suite, you can reach out to membersuccess@cisecurity.org, or if you have a technical question, support@cisecurity.org. Kiyun asks, do you have hardened image with Active Directory on the server?
We do not currently, but it is something that we are considering and taking a look at.
We have Dan Hines asking, where do you find CIS version changes? I would assume that is directed to benchmark version changes. One of you gentlemen want to take that?
I wish it was a little clearer on the question, but yeah. I'm going to assume you mean, where do you find changes of the benchmarks? So when you go to our Workbench page, you can go to downloads, you can put in any name of the benchmark, and you'll see all the versions listed that we have published. Assuming that's what you're talking about. Unless you're talking about cloud image changes, then I'll pass that to Greg.
Yeah, our cloud image changes are built off the specific version for the benchmark. We do minor version updates, and those will include Windows updates or OS updates, Linux updates. They won't include any, obviously, if there's no changes in the benchmark. So we follow the benchmark version numbers, and we do have an FAQ on the Hardened Images pages that talks about our versioning and should help define it. But basically, our versioning follows the benchmark, and then we add a minor version based off of the OS level updates that apply to the individual hardened images.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And again, we'll get back to you if, or you can reach out to us if you feel your question hasn't been answered to its fullest. Chris at 135 asks, we are not allowed to deploy the hardened images because we use a CSP. ... Is that normal? So that's the first question. As a follow-up, can we use hardened images on premises? Example, copy a running VM to a local on-prem Hyper-V.
So currently we only offer, I can answer the second question first, and we'll go back to the first one. Currently we only offer hardened images through Marketplace on the major cloud service providers, CSPs. Chris, if you're still on the line, if you could reach out to me, I'd be interested in what form you would like that hardened image in to be able to bring into your environment. I know you're saying you want to run it on Hyper-V, but I want to talk to you about what might be the best format for that to be for you to utilize, because we're looking at that also. Why are you not allowed to deploy the hardened images? When you say CSP, if you have a specific subscription and you have to bring your own licenses, that's an instance in a situation where I've seen people not be able to use our hardened images because we do not have a BYOL solution in place right now. But also reach out to me, Chris, with that question. I'd be interested in why, if that's not the case, why you can't use our images.
Also, Chris, in a particular case where you want to run it in Hyper-V, you could also, use the remediation kits in your environment for local on-prem solutions.
Yes, thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, for the moment. And Chris, feel free to email me, and I can get you in touch with Greg if you don't have his email.
Okay, so thank you, gentlemen. Tomaso asks, is there any CIS configuration management template such as Puppet or Ansible playbook that can be used against an already installed OS? Greg, I think you probably know that one.
Yeah, Jordan knows this one too. Currently, we only offer scripts and GPOs for remediation templates. We are looking at additional configuration management templates. Tomaso, I'd be interested in, if you're asking for Puppet, if you're asking for Ansible, if you're asking for both, if you could utilize either. We're trying to get some feedback from members, non-members, and users on what additional remediation content we might provide that might be beneficial for anybody. So please reach out. To answer your question,
Great.
We do not currently offer that.
Thanks again, gentlemen. Ryan asks, with these pre-configured images, is there documentation on what other items are still left to be configured or should be reviewed? For example, audit settings, banner text, et cetera, et cetera.
I could, Greg, do you mind if I take this one?
No, go ahead. You alluded to it before, so no.
Yeah. Well, there's two things I really want to point out that are important. Even though they are pre-configured, I'd still recommend reviewing the benchmarks for any of these, right? Just so you know what settings are applied. Like, it's great to have them pre-configured and everything, but still take a look. I know it's a big document for both Linux and Windows, but still look at it just to see, what settings are applied and the reasonings behind that, because there may be a setting you want to pull out. To go in with that, yes, we have an exception report also located on the root of C on the Windows side. I'm the Windows guy, so that's why I know where that is. Under hardened reports, and it'll be marked exceptions, and those are like I think 6 to 8 items that we can't pull out, and I think banner text is one of them. There's a reason we have to turn that off when we do submissions for Marketplace in the cloud environments, but we outline them all there on the items that we had to turn off. So yes, you can go back in and turn them on if you'd like to, or configure them to any way you'd like. But yeah, we do include the exception report along with the SysCat report, so the full scan of what the system looked like when we published it.
Jordan, thank you so much. So here's a more general question. Gentlemen, if you want to take it, let me know. I'll take it. If not, Dory Valter asks, any CIS image on any level can be weakened by an operational system update, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk to that quick. I mean, any instance that's built off of any image can be weakened by any update. We often talk about configuration drift and why you should always use tools to monitor and assess systems and make sure that they stay secure, right? So like that a patch or an update doesn't change the security setting. That goes back to one of the reasons why we rebuild every month. We get that question quite often, why are you rebuilding images every month? It's one, to incorporate all those Windows updates. It's also to make sure that if you can utilize the latest image, you're not getting, you're limiting configuration drift.
Yeah, I think, Greg, you're 100% on that. And the patches won't really change your configuration. So the patches are the things you want to do. With like Windows and Linux, the version updates, so the big feature pack updates are the things you want to be careful about. And I don't say be careful because they're dangerous. I'm just saying that the benchmarks you're applying are for a specific version of Windows or Linux, right? So if you upgrade to the newer OS and there has to be and there's settings that aren't addressed in the current OS baseline, well, now you don't have those settings identified. So technically, yes. So you just have to be aware of that. That's why a lot of business customers normally will pick an OS and stick with that version for a given period of time and then plan an update properly. So feature updates are kind of the ones you want to be careful about. The patches, the security patches are the good things you want to apply each month. And like Greg said, they put out the images once a month. They're published anyways with the newest updates.
All right, thank you guys. We have another 5 minutes left in this call, so we're going to try to get through as many of these questions as possible. But again, if we don't get back to you, we are going to have a record of this Q&A, and we'll cross-reference that with your email address and get back out to you. So Bruce Stout asks, are you looking into Cisco Meraki Cloud MX? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that. Meraki Cloud MX products for benchmarks, similarly that you are developing for Checkpoint.
I don't believe it's on the roadmap at the moment. I'm not. Another teammate does the network gear, and I haven't heard it come up in our meetings. But the way, if you're looking for specific coverage, suggestions are the best way to get that done. We build content based on the feedback that we get from everyone. So if you just want to shoot an email saying, hey, I'd love you guys to add, and feel free to add more, you know, Meraki, and then any other benchmarks you'd want to see, and we'll add it to the roadmap list of trying to get that built. So if we can get a community built around it and folks to help, yeah, sure, we can get something out. But it's based on feedback. So definitely shoot us an email with the content you're looking for. And Ronan, if you want to provide that email address before we end for everyone.
And to follow up on that, Bruce, I did write your idea down also because it is cloud-based specifically, so I'm going to also follow up and take a look at that and see what that might be. That might look like.
Okay. Bijan asks, can we use the same CIS hardening guidelines for container-based OS images? What is different?
You can use the hardening guidelines for a container-based OS. What we're seeing is a big difference is packages installed based on containers. So you'd have to, you know, take a look at the benchmark and compare it basically. We have a Docker benchmark which references what you should do with the EOS, but it's not specific for each OS. So there's some tailoring and some work you have to do on your end on that one. Unfortunately, we don't have any benchmarks specific to a container OS. We're looking at it now, but I don't know in which way we're going to go with that.
Right. It might be the similar fashion you would do with any application benchmark on an OS benchmark, right? So it's a benchmark within a benchmark. So you have your, like for instance, SQL, right? So you would have, or MS SQL, you would have your Windows OS hardened, and then you would go through and then do the hardening for the database itself. So similar, you'd want to do the actual container hardening first, and then go ahead and do whatever OS hardening second.
Correct.
Okay.
And there may be some gotchas in there. But.
There are a few gotchas, yes. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Larry asked another question about CSP. Will the CSP Linux images be independently published by CIS, and if so, in what format? For example, will such images be available from CIS as conformant container images, Docker, LXC, LXD?
I just lost that question. I was just trying to read it again.
Okay, you see it.
What time was it again?
1:45.
1:45.
Oh, okay, cool. My screen jumped. So independently published, no. We currently only publish through cloud service providers marketplaces. I'd like to talk to you more about that though, so I don't know if you're available. If you could shoot me an email, I'd just like some more specifics on what you're looking at from an independent perspective. The answer
so I'm going to go
right
through some of these since we only. Yep. So sorry, folks. I'm going to try to go through some of these really quickly. And again, if we don't answer these questions, we'll come back to you. But sample remediation kits, we do have that available through the CIS website. Munir will send you an email on that one. I would like to have those support emails where to ask some questions about different benchmarks for your tools. Yes. So the support email address is support@cisecurity.org. If you are a member of CIS Secure Suite, it's the email you should use is membersuccess@cisecurity.org. If you are talking to a current CIS sales rep, obviously contact them if you want to make sure that your question is followed up on. We will go through, again, the Q&A section and make sure that we've answered a lot of these questions or reach out to you if you did have questions. Thank you so much for joining us on our webinar with regards to the CIS Hardened Images. We do appreciate the participation. We hope that this was helpful for everybody. And we will be signing off now, but again, we will follow up. We'll also capture the chat as well to make sure that each of you are responded to, and we can answer any questions about either Hardened Images or CIS Secure Suite. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Greg, Jordan, and Kelly, for helping out and for giving the presentation. Have a great afternoon.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, guys.